Merry Christmas. Are you glad to be in church this evening? We're so glad you're here. You can go ahead and take your seat. It's already been a special evening, but we're not done yet. And man, we've got a lot of you here in the room, but I want to give a special shout out to some of my friends that I know are watching online tonight. I'm talking about my friend Bill. Check this out. Bill's watching at home because he just finished his last infusion treatment as he not just battles cancer, but he's going to beat cancer. Bill, we love you. I want to tell you about my friends John and Melissa. They're watching from the hospital tonight because John is recovering from a triple bypass surgery. He almost didn't make it to that surgery, but there were a lot of people that were praying for John, and now he's recovering in the hospital. So John and Melissa, we love you. We're grateful for you. And then check this out. This is so cool. Captain Jason Odierno, who's part of our church family here at Centerpoint, he's on duty tonight, and he's watching this service with around 20 firefighters and their family members at the Washington Courthouse Fire Department. So Jason and all the family and friends watching, we love you and we're grateful for your service and for your sacrifice tonight. I also just want to honor the incredible Centerpoint Church team. Can y'all just show them some love, man? Just being here on a holiday to serve you. None of this would happen without them. I want to share just a brief message with you tonight that I pray will really help set the tone and give all of us proper perspective as we go into the rest of our Christmas Eve evening and celebrate Christmas tomorrow. Many of us will continue to celebrate throughout the rest of this week. I want to take you to the book of Matthew chapter 2. Many of you, even maybe those of you that don't do this whole church thing on a regular basis, will know the story that I'm going to read from tonight. And if you've got your tablets, Bibles, or smartphones, you can follow along with us. If you don't have any of that, we're going to put it up on the screen. You can also download our Centerpoint Live church app and follow along that way. But I want to take you back to a story you've heard before. Maybe give you some new perspective as we step into this Christmas season. Matthew 2, we'll start with verses 1 through 2. Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from the eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." We'll go down to verse 9. After this interview, an interview that they had with the king, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them, and it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house, and they saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasure chest and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. I've entitled this Christmas at Centerpoint sermon tonight, "The Star and the Stable." And that's what I want to talk to you about for just a few moments. I know we've got a lot of our elementary kids in the room. So kids, I know mom and dad and grandma and grandpa are probably telling you to be really quiet right now, but I'm going to let you be loud for a minute. If you're excited for Santa, I want you to shout right now. Are you ready for Santa tonight? Are you ready? I figured we had some fans in the room. It was just a guess. I want to tell you a little bit of the story about Santa Claus because we kind of know one thing about Santa Claus, but we don't always know the real story of Santa Claus. And I want to tell you the real story tonight about this man that turned into Santa Claus that was actually this man named St. Nicholas. We actually give gifts because of the wise men. That story we just read in Matthew is a story about the wise men, and they brought gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh to Jesus when they came to see him. And that's why at Christmas we give gifts to people that we love today. And there was this man a long, long time ago named St. Nicholas who knew that there were people in his town, people in his community who didn't have a lot. And so as the story of St. Nicholas goes, he would specifically with the children in mind, gather up some goodies, and he would go hide them in their socks when they couldn't see him. This is why we hang stockings in our home at Christmas time. It's why Santa fills the stockings with all kinds of goodies, because it started a long, long time ago with this man named St. Nicholas. He would see people that had needs, and he would do his best to meet those needs. He was generous and he was kind, and in his mind, when he was giving gifts, he was simply doing for people in his community what the wise men had already done for Jesus. And as somebody that loved Jesus and that was following God, he thought it was only right that he should do this. Here we are thousands of years later, and we still think a lot about Santa Claus and the gifts that he gives on Christmas Eve. We all like gifts. Not just the kids in the room, but the grown-ups in the room. And here's the reality. There's good gifts, and then there's bad gifts. Anybody ever gotten a bad gift before? Come on, raise your hand. I hope the person that gave it to you is not sitting next to you. I grew up as a pastor's kid, so we got lots of people that gave us lots of things at Christmas. And I remember this person in our church who had this really big box that they brought into our Christmas cantata one year. It was this really big, really heavy box, and it was wrapped up and it had a bow on it. And I was pretty young. I was probably 9 or 10. And so all I knew was that somebody gave us a really big box that was really heavy and it had a really big bow on it. And I started thinking about all the things that could be in that box. I mean, who wouldn't want a big gift with a big bow in a really heavy box? So my mind was running wild with what could be in this box. I just couldn't wait to get home and open this box. And it felt like church took forever that night, because I just wanted to get home so we could see what was in the box. And after my parents were done talking to every single person at church, after that Christmas cantata, we finally got home. And of all the gifts that we had, that's the one I was most excited about. I remember my dad bringing it in from his car and setting it on the table. And I remember being so excited to open it. I asked if I could be the one, and they said yes. And I ripped the paper off, thinking about all the amazing things that were going to be inside that box, and it was just a box full of fruit. Nobody wants something good for you at Christmas. And I remember looking at all that fruit and thinking, man, I thought it was going to be something a lot better than fruits. I didn't want to say it, but I was thinking it, because, right, kids, we're supposed to be grateful no matter what the gift is. And I was trying to be grateful, but I was kind of pouting about it. Kind of thought it was going to be something, and it turned out to be something totally different. But here's the thing. That next day, I remember eating one of the apples from that box of fruit. And when I took a bite of that apple, I thought, this is the best apple I've ever had in my entire life. Turns out that gift wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but it actually ended up being a pretty good gift that was better than what I thought it was when I saw it. When we read the Christmas story and we learn about the shepherds and the wise men and this encounter they have with Jesus, I think what we see is this reminder that sometimes the best gifts come from the most unlikely of places. We've spent a month at Centerpoint talking about the shepherds side of the Christmas story. And really what I want to do tonight is I want to talk about the wise men. These are wealthy, intelligent, independent, strong individuals. They've spent their life, among other things, studying the stars. And they were fascinated by this bright star that they saw in the east. They actually followed this star because of an ancient prophecy. Let me read just a portion of that prophecy to you from the book of Numbers 24:17. That prophecy said that a star will rise from Jacob, a scepter will emerge from Israel. They knew this verse. They knew this text. And as students of the stars, they waited for this moment when there would be a star in a moment unlike anything they had ever seen. And when they saw this star in the east, they thought it was possible that that star that was bright and didn't go out but stayed bright just might be connected to this prophecy. And so they went searching. Here's the thing. I think some of us find ourselves searching tonight. We might not even want to admit we're searching, but we're searching. What are we searching for? We're searching for hope. We're searching for meaning. We're searching for significance. And maybe, just maybe, what you're looking for, you're going to find in the most unlikely of places. Because the thing about the wise men is that they had it all by the standards of the world. And yet, even though they had it all and they had access to everything, it still wasn't enough. They knew that there was something more. And they found what they were looking for by following this star that led them to a baby who was now in a very modest house after being born in a very unlikely place in a stable. And so maybe tonight, for you, this is more than a service. Maybe just like the wise men were following that star, maybe your search has led you here. And maybe some of you in the room and some of you even watching online right now didn't want to be here. Somebody convinced you to be here. And maybe, just maybe, if you'll uncross your arms and open your heart, you'll see that what you've been looking for, you will find in this unlikely place. So if you're like the wise men tonight and you're still looking for that hope and that meaning and that significance, I want to help be your guide for the little bit of time we have together. And I just want to share some perspective with you as we enter into this Christmas season. If you find yourself searching, I want to remind you to keep looking. This journey that the wise men went on was not a quick one. Remember the star and the story of a baby that was born in a stable led them on this search. And I think this story reminds us that good things are worth the search. Matthew 2:2, where is the newborn king of the Jews? The wise men asked King Herod. We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him. Sometimes it can be difficult to find what you really want. I remember just a few years ago, after COVID, when everything was really hard to find. Do y'all remember that? Like everything you wanted and everything that you wanted to get people was just really hard and really difficult to find. And we had one of our kids who wanted a pair of shoes. And they really wanted those pair of shoes. And we looked everywhere for those shoes, but we could not find those pair of shoes. We looked online. We went to every store we could think of. And on the final store that I could think of to visit, the person at that store told me they were going to call another store that I didn't even know existed anymore. And they were going to see if they had that pair of shoes. And that journey led me over to the Eastland Mall in Columbus, Ohio. And if you didn't know that was still a mall, that's because it's basically not a mall. I was kind of afraid for my life when I walked in the doors, if I'm being real honest. But they said they had the shoes. And so because one of our kids wanted these shoes, I was determined as a dad to do everything I could to go search and to go find that pair of shoes. So much so that I would even risk my life Christmas shopping just to get those shoes. And I found those shoes. And you know this feeling, we've all had it when you've been looking for something and you finally find what you've been looking for. It's such a rewarding feeling. It's such a good moment. It makes all of us feel really, really, really good. The wise men have been on this journey for months because the star started shining the night that Jesus was born. But here's what we miss about the story. The story of the wise men and the shepherds are two completely different stories. Because if your nativity is like our nativity, we put the wise men and the shepherds together. But they didn't show up on the same night. As a matter of fact, depending on the theologian or the scholar that you ask, people say that it would have taken at least 6 months for the wise men to find Jesus. That's why he was no longer in the stable, but he was in a home. And then there's some people that say Jesus was possibly already 2 years old by the time the wise men found him. 6 to 24 months They were searching, they were looking, they were waiting to find this thing that they were looking for. And the thing was actually a person. And when they find that person, it was worth the search. What the wise men found that night was a gift that forever changed their life. And even though they found him in a home, their journey started with a star that was shining over a stable. A stable where animals lived. This is the place Jesus was born. Who would have thought that a star shining over a stable could have led to something so significant that would change the course of human history, and one person at a time, starting with the shepherds, continuing with the wise men, and so many others, including many of us today. Our lives have been forever changed because of this story. So if you're searching, keep looking. Keep looking. But remember that what you're looking for is actually a who. It's not a what. It wasn't about the star or the stable. It was about the baby that was born in the stable and the star that led them to this moment. Matthew 2:10-11, when they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down and they worshiped him. They knew as soon as they got there, as soon as they saw the star shining over that home and they walked through the doors of the home, they knew that Jesus was the reason they were there. They knew that the prophecy had come to pass. Tonight, after our family gets home, we'll spend time participating in one of our annual Christmas Eve traditions. Part of our Christmas Eve tradition is to gather right here as a family with all of you. The other part of our Christmas Eve tradition is to go home and get our Christmas PJs on and get our snacks spread out, and then to spend the rest of our Christmas evening before we go to bed watching It's a Wonderful Life. This was a tradition that I had in my family growing up that we've continued with our kids. We all look forward to watching It's a Wonderful Life and the story of George Bailey every single year. If you've never watched the movie, I won't spoil it for you, but I want to tell you a little bit about it. And quite frankly, if I spoil some of it, it's been around since the 1940s, so you've had plenty of time. George Bailey's dad is a banker, and he's a banker that always sees the best in people, which makes him, by some accounts, not the best banker, because he takes a chance on people that nobody else will take a chance on. And there's George Bailey's dad, and then there's Mr. Potter, and Mr. Potter's trying to buy the entire town and doesn't want anything to do with George Bailey and his dad's bank. Well, through a series of events, even though George Bailey tries to leave town, he ends up staying in town, and he ends up running his father's bank. But as the story goes, as Christmas is approaching and a deposit has to be made with an auditor there to check the books, a major deposit is lost. Here's a spoiler for you. It wasn't lost. It was stolen by Mr. Potter. But if they don't find that money, there will be no bank. George's life will be over. His dad's legacy will be forever ruined. And Mr. Potter will win. For those of you kids who have never heard the story, just think about Mr. Potter like the bad guy and George Bailey as the good guy. If Mr. Bailey is Santa, then that makes Mr. Potter Jack Frost. And so George starts to reflect on his life and starts to wish that he would have never been born. And he doesn't know how he's going to come up with this money. He doesn't know how he's going to find it. He doesn't know how everything's going to work out. And he thinks that maybe that should be his last Christmas. Maybe he should just leave and never come back. Maybe it should all just be over because he's failed so bad doing this thing that he never wanted to do anyway. But in George's darkest hour, something significant happens. Because just like the wise men in our story tonight understand that it's not a what that they're looking for, it's a who, George Bailey realizes that even though he thought he needed a what, which was money, it was actually a who that he needed, or in his case, a whole lot of who's in his life, a whole lot of people coming together to pitch in and save him. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the people, it was about the community. And so many of us are chasing a what? We're chasing the next thing. We're chasing the next fix. We're chasing the next promotion, the next advancement. And every time we get it, because I know some of you relate to this right now, you've lived it, it never satisfies for as long as we think it will satisfy. Because the what in life will never satisfy. Only a who can satisfy. And that who is Jesus. And I wonder if this Christmas, this was the year that you stopped looking for a what and you said yes to a who. I wonder if you tried everything else, what it would look like for you to try Jesus. I wonder what could happen in your life and in your story if you didn't just leave from here coming to another Christmas Eve service at church, but if you made this a moment that forever changed the story and the trajectory of your life. I wonder if you took what God has done in your life and in your heart tonight on this December 24th and you carried it in to the new year with you. I wonder what could happen. I wonder what God could do. I wonder what that could look like. What if this was the year that the message of Christmas, because there is a message with Christmas, I wonder if this was the year that that message forever changed you. I know that some of you just came to sing Christmas songs and to feel Christmassy feels. And I know that some of you even thought to yourself, I'll tolerate the message because it's part of the service. I know. And I also know some of you carry a lot of hurt with church. Maybe people have let you down. Maybe a leader's let you down. Maybe a pastor's let you down. Maybe you've tried this before. And even though your life was better when you tried Jesus the last time, you walked away and you feel ashamed to come back. Don't forget that it's not a what, it's a who. And so you can keep trying all the whats that this world has to offer. But there is no gift that's better than the gift of freedom, hope, and salvation. See, really, at its core, that's the message of Christmas. God had to send his son Jesus to live with us and ultimately to die for us so that we could have forgiveness from everything wrong we have ever done and will ever do in our life. And even when you didn't love Jesus, he loved you back. He loved me back, even when I didn't love him. He loves all of us, even when we don't love him. And here's the thing about the Christmas story, Jesus would do it all over again. Knowing that he was going to be born, knowing that he was going to die, he would do it all again because it would give us the hope and the freedom that can only come through him. And so I don't know where you find yourself on this Christmas Eve night, but I do know it's not an accident that you are here. I know that many of you had somebody in your family or in your life, in your circle of friends that loved you enough to invite you to be here tonight. When the star leads you to a stable, say yes to the Savior. That's what the wise men did. They followed the star to find this baby that was born in a stable, and they said yes to the gift that he offered that they couldn't find in any other earthly thing. And so if that's you tonight on this Christmas, I want to give you a chance to say yes. For everybody that's in the room, everybody that's watching online, I want to lead us all through a prayer. We call it the prayer of salvation. And if you've never said yes to Jesus, or maybe at one point you said yes to Jesus, but you've run far, far away from him, I want to give you a chance on this Christmas to say yes. For the first time, we're going to run back to him. And even those of us who are already following Jesus, we're going to pray this prayer out loud with you. We're all going to repeat this prayer after me. We're going to say it out loud as a confession of what we already believe and know to be true. And we're going to speak it out loud for your benefit. For those of you that might be praying this for the first time or coming back to your faith, we want you to know you're not alone tonight. So can we all bow our heads? Can we close our eyes? And would you just repeat this prayer boldly after me? Say, Jesus, I love you. I thank you for loving me. I thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. I ask forgiveness for my sin. I ask forgiveness for my mistakes. Come into my life. Make me new. Do what only you can do. I give you everything I have. I give you everything I am. I give you everything I hope to be. I give you all of me today. In Jesus' name I pray.